So we'll begin this evening with about 10 minutes of meditation. And I can say a few words to take us into meditation, just a matter of uh, sort of really each one of us relaxing and unplugging a little bit from all the activities of today and coming more into our own bodies and more into the present moment. So if you just want to find a pretty comfortable position, put your feet flat on the floor. And you can feel your sit bones on the chair. Have your back uh, as erect as is comfortable, and you can nod your head back and forth and front to back a little bit and get it comfortable. Feel your hands. You can, each one of us, drop our shoulders, relax our jaw, relax our eyes. And we can invite our attention to become very aware of our breathing in and our breathing out. As much as possible, relaxed, comfortable, and confident. The body knows how to breathe. And the awareness, the attention, knows how to know. And we can use a word if that's helpful. We could use very simply in and out. In and out. And if the attention slips off of the breath, we just simply begin again. And I'll stop talking now and ring the bell in about 5 minutes. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Phil, for inviting me here tonight. It's lovely to be in Calgary, and what an amazing, amazing day, an amazing night. So the talk tonight is becoming one's own best friend, and tall order for all of us. But hopefully, some of what I say will land and make sense and be useful. I want to start by quoting one of the very first Western fully ordained Buddhist nuns. Her name is Ayya Ahimsa. She was German Jew, and she died in 1997. And I read this early on when I first came in contact with the Buddhist teachings, and she talked about that our spiritual practice, our meditation practice, was the greatest love story. The greatest love story. And it was very appealing to me. And it started to make a lot of sense. I was beginning to experience that as I was becoming more mindful. And this is Wellness Through Mindfulness, the whole program. Beautiful, beautiful name for the program. Wellness Through Mindfulness. And I don't know if you've had this experience that as you're mindful, you realize, oh, this is like falling in love. This is what happens when you're falling in love. You're so aware of every single thing that this person that you're falling in love with does. And you're like, oh, don't you love the way that they go like this when they're making a really important point? Or when they laugh, they you notice every little thing about them, and you're enthralled. And it's not hard to pay attention to them. This is mindfulness. When it's actually infused with, informed with love, it becomes much more natural and automatic. So how do we do this? Become our own best friend. When you think about a good friend, when I think about a good friend, think about someone, probably the first thing I would put on the list is that I feel somewhat understood. I feel seen, I feel accepted, and a really good friend often brings out the best in you, and you have this feeling with a good friend that they trust you, they see the good in you. They're quick to give you the benefit of the doubt. And if it's a good relationship, a good friendship, it's very two-way. And the person at times will rely on you and depend on you. And it's okay to be vulnerable. These are the qualities of good friendship. And yet, sometimes when we look at our inner life, that doesn't always describe it. I think all of us have times where we are holding ourselves or speaking to ourselves in a way that it's like, I wouldn't use that tone with a stranger. I wouldn't use that tone, let alone a friend. Many of us have, there can be a criticalness and a harshness and a quick at times to think the worst, not the best. And we have all come by this very honestly. Being most of us, from European descent, being Westerners, there's a story of many of the original Western lay teachers meeting with the Dalai Lama. And this goes back, maybe more than 30 years ago. And they were talking about this issue, about this inner critic and about this harshness. And it was in the context of many Westerners were finding it difficult to direct metta towards themselves, that to direct metta towards themselves was kind of like the difficult person. And the Dalai Lama didn't understand. He didn't understand. And so they were expounding on and explaining some of the issues of the way that at times we will speak to ourselves and be so critical. And apparently the Dalai Lama started to cry. And I don't want to paint a picture like everything's rosy in the East and everything's really difficult in the West. That I was in a group meditation interview this weekend with a Burmese teacher, and I said something about my gratitude that he was willing to teach neurotic Westerners, and he responded with, problems in the West, there's problems in the East as well. That they're different because we're all human, and we have, all of us, a lot of conditioning. But we've certainly come by this sometimes problematic, not good friend relationship with ourselves, very honestly. If we look at the roots of Western civilization, you look at Aristotle is sort of the founder of this very binary, very good, bad, right, wrong, very, very value-based, dualistic, binary way of holding ourselves, holding others, holding the world. And it's very us and them, and he took all of this from Pythagoras, who developed this table of opposites. But Pythagoras developed it related to geometry. It was not related. It was not about people and us and society and men versus women, et cetera, et cetera. And then we can look at Christianity, certain forms of Christianity, where there's a lot of emphasis on us having, a sinful nature, there being some kind of badness inside, some kind of need for a savior. We can look at being in an individualistic society. Again, it's a setup because everything depends on ourselves. If you come from a collectivist society, your identity is stemming from the group that you're a part of, and the family that you're a part of, and the people that are around you. And when you're in an individualistic society, everything like failure and success land directly on you, and you become very identified with your performance. There was an interview of two divers. They were Olympic medalists, and they had just one had won the gold and one had won the silver, and they were being interviewed. And the first one was American, and in the interview she's like, it just worked out. I was really focused. It was I'd done the training, and I was just able to draw on all my skill. This was her language, and the second diver was Japanese, and her interview was like, I just want to thank my coach and my family, and it was like it wasn't her, and this is true with the successes, but it's very true with the failures. Another source for us of this setup that we've all been brought up in, of good, bad, right, wrong, success, failure, and it all landing very personally, is the Buddha's teachings. That we have these three unwholesome roots, and the first one is craving, wanting, and the second one is, it's just the flip side of wanting. It's aversion. It's a not wanting. And then the third is delusion, that we just don't see clearly. We don't understand the way things really are. And so we live in a completely capitalistic, materialistic consumer society, where craving is actually completely encouraged, completely fostered, and even sort of not seen as a problem. Definitely, it's like the society is running on it. All these people are walking around these days with these bags that say "crave" on them. I think it's a radio station or something, but cupcakes. Yeah, crave. It's blatant, So I just want to point out that craving is like practically on steroids in our culture. It's running rampant, and the flip side of craving is wanting something else. It is aversion, and when we talk about not always being a good friend to ourselves, that we are actually talking about aversion. We reject parts. We hate parts sometimes, parts of ourselves, aspects of ourselves. Invariably, most of us have fallen into this thinking, that it would be better if this particular part of me, this particular behavior, wasn't there. Most of us have had periods of our lives where we've certainly thought that, and maybe even still do. Yeah. And the other, and this is just like such a broad brush. I don't propose to know tons about Western civilization, but this is almost out of my own head, and I'm sure there's more. But the other source of this conditioning comes from Greek and Roman mythology. It's full of it. The whole good, bad, God, not God, and hero, villain. This whole making enemies, all of the mythology around the slaying the dragon, and cutting off the head of the serpent. Hercules ends up with these 12 tasks. The second of Hercules' tasks was to kill Hydra, this 9-headed serpent that lived at Lake Lerna in southern Italy. And Hercules goes to slay this serpent, and every time so he's got 9 heads to cut off, not just one. And so every time he cuts off a head, 2 grow back in its place. and he's completely overwhelmed and losing the battle. He ends up having to enlist the help of his nephew, Iolus, and so Iolus, he'll cut off a head, and Iolus cauterizes the neck, and nothing grows back. And so this is all being successful. He's getting the upper hand, and then he comes to the middle head. There's 4 on this side, 4 on this side. The middle head, it turns out, is eternal. And so he cuts it off, and it lands on the ground, but it's still hissing and barking at him. And to me, this is very significant in the roots of our society, in this mythology. So Hercules takes this head and he buries it very deep in the ground and puts a boulder over it. And these two patterns that we have towards things that are difficult, this like trying to kill it or trying to bury it. We've inherited this is deep in our psyches. Even if we didn't know this story of Hercules, it's in the very fabric of our culture. So that was the bad news. I will try and talk about how to be a good friend to ourselves. So how do we do this? Okay, I just want everyone to realize the you're not alone. Like this is we've inherited this. It's very well in ourselves. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't know those things, but it's deep in our psyche, and so it's like a mountain that we need to climb to come into a more loving, accepting, kind relationship with certain parts of ourselves, certain parts, the parts that we deem as problematic or difficult or lacking or failing. I think the first thing is this is true of so many instructions from the Buddha, that the first thing is our thinking about it. To really start becoming a better friend to ourselves begins with our understanding, with our wisdom, with our thinking, with our approach. This is true of all of the Buddhist teachings. It always starts with like new information. It always starts with like a new way of looking, with fresh input, with a fresh approach. And it's the same when we're thinking about our relationship with ourselves. And so I think the beginning is that we become very convinced that there's another way, that there's another approach of dealing with the things that are difficult within our own psychology, within our own being. This is the beginning. There's a beautiful quote that really underscores this. It was on a poster. A friend of mine had a poster, and a really neat, cartoon drawing in color of a person riding a horse, and it's illustrated, and the quote is from Brian Andrus. He's an American illustrator, author. And the quote says, Anyone can slay the dragon, he told me. But try waking up each morning and loving the world all over again. That takes a real hero. And this is what we're talking about. That we really become convinced that that the real hero is the person that has come into very good relationship with themselves, not someone off slaying dragons. This is really, it's heroic work and very important work. And even Carl Jung, I don't have this one memorized, but Carl Jung says one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You know, Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who's done so much work with the shadow. You know, that's really what we're talking about here. And there's lots of Buddhist teachers and lots of wise teachers that reframe, you know, talk about the shadow. Ajahn Sucitto talks about these things as orphans of consciousness. You know, we want to bring them back into the warmth and into our hearts. Ajahn Tinisro says it's very useful to think of the mind as a committee, you know, and there are different committee members, and we've all served on committees, and we've all had the experience of like, oh, that guy's talking again. You know, we've all had that experience. You know, we all have those parts inside of ourselves. There's two more I want to mention, and one is a wonderful Tibetan lay teacher, and her name is Soltram Alion, and she's written a book, Feeding Your Demons, and that's really what I'm talking about here, feeding your demons, not fighting them, actually feeding them and caring for them, and then they transform. But that's not why you do it. You do it because you love them. And because they're part of you. And there's another book that's really useful called No Bad Parts, and it's by Dr. Richard Schwartz, and he's the founder of Internal Family Systems. And again, he talks about these different parts of us and getting to know them and coming into really good relationship with them. And you're having someone October 17th coming and talking about this therapeutic approach, internal family systems. And this book, No Bad Parts, is very, very good. So I think this is the beginning, that we become convinced that there's a great deal of wisdom, and there's a lot of wisdom teachings that are inviting us to approach the difficult parts of ourselves, the difficult parts of our lives, in a really different way, with curiosity and care. And I think the second thing is to begin to find ways to accept ourselves. This is a lovely definition of metta. If any of you have learned about metta practice of benevolence, just a genuine well-wishing. And a great definition of metta is just acceptance. Like genuinely just accepting that, you know, gosh, I'm really impatient sometimes, you know, and just really not fighting it off, not denying it, not hating it. sometimes there's parts of ourselves, if we're really honest, like we hate them. We think that they're causing a lot of problems in our lives. And this is adding greatly to the problem. You know, it's like there's parts of ourselves that are young. There's parts of ourselves that are like quite immature children. You know, and we all know that. There's times then, why did I get so upset? They just said blah blah blah. You know, but I'm like, and it's because somehow, you know, we have these words now, like you get triggered, or it just pushes a button, right? Like, and you end up, a part of you that you often want to think is not there, you know, is very apparent. So acceptance is a really, really important part, that we're not suppressing, we're not burying that hissing head. You know, we're trying to care for it the way you would care for a child that's overwhelmed and dysregulated and not able to cope very well. Start to view our different parts in this frame, can open our hearts and help us access care and compassion, acceptance. There's a wonderful British monk. He's now he lives in Australia. His name's Ajahn Brahm, and he is the go-to monk for this being okay with the way you are just right now. You don't have to be different. You know, let's not have our spiritual lives be just this another self-improvement program, you know, another thing that we're supposed to do. I really should go running, you know, like this is more of the same. We really want our spiritual lives to be like opening a window and a whole new fresh air coming in, and something that feels good. This is like, I want to do this because it's really benefiting me. Ajahn Brahm has, you know, he's got a book. The title is "Don't Worry, Be Grumpy." You know, starting to have this kind of attitude, like it's okay. I'm trying my best here. It turns out it's not really very good, but I'm trying my best, you know. And then we started just to have, like, cut ourselves a lot of slack, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of compassion. We have these cards with all these little sayings, Ajahn Brahm. One is, "You're okay, mind. I love you." Even like you're really upset, but like, and this is how we would approach a child that's really upset. You know, you think about a colicky baby. What do you do with a colicky baby? You hold it close to your heart, and then your body starts to rock, and then you speak into the ear of this colicky baby. You can't take the colic away. We can't at times take some of the things that are difficult for us and that we're not very good at, and that we haven't really, areas of our lives, our psychology, that we haven't developed yet. You know, sometimes we just need to think of it as a colicky baby. Shh, it's okay. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You know, this will be the beginning of space, of an out breath, of a relax, of okayness, you know. Boy, we cannot hear messages of like, just it's okay, enough, We live in a culture that, oh my gosh, I live in Canmore. I'm like in my mid-60s, I'm schlepping up these mountains like, and then always, these people run past me, like run without a pack or anything because they're on a run, A couple weeks ago, schlepping up this mountain, person runs past me again, back down, runs past me again, going up again, and runs down. Past me 4 times. I'm like trying to get down the mountain. And it's okay. No, we live in a society that's just like pushing so hard. And wow. And it's so cool. In the Buddha's teachings, it talks about, it actually uses the word contentment, but I'm going to switch in okay. It's like a huge blessing for us to hear a lot of talk about okay. So it's wonderful for us to even encourage one another with talk about okay, you're doing enough, you're doing fine, you're doing well, you're doing your best, and it's okay. And your house, it's okay. The way your house is, it's okay. We're always like, oh, they come over and try to clean up. It's like, no, it's okay. My mother-in-law was lovely. She would always say, I came to see you, not your house. But then she would do some outrageous things. But anyway, I'll focus on the lovely things she said. Yeah. In the Buddhist teachings, sort of the sentinel teaching is the Eightfold Noble Path. And the second part of the Eightfold Noble Path, the first part is what I've been talking about. The first part is right view. Everything always starts with starting to think of things differently, right view. And the second part is actually what I'm talking about, this acceptance part. It's right intention, and there these intentions that counter these problematic, unwholesome roots that we all have: craving, aversion, and delusion. And the right intention, Ajahn Brahm, this wonderful monk, he's sort of got this shorthand for the right intention, and it's this quality I'm talking about. Talks about make peace, be kind, be gentle. And we really want to start that with ourselves. Make peace, be kind, be gentle. And start to really, sometimes, it's so ingrained, the habit of not being a good friend to ourselves. Sometimes we actually have to almost like deliberately role play, okay, I feel like I just wrecked this thing, I messed up. Okay, I'm going to talk to myself right now the way I would talk to a friend if they came over and described this exact conversation, this exact situation. I'm just going to force myself to do that. What would I do? I would do the colicky baby thing, right? I would listen, I would empathize, and then I would try and reassure. Yeah. Becoming our own best friend. Yeah. Make peace, be kind, be gentle. I'm sorry about the robes, man. I don't know what's going on. They don't fall off in Canmore. The gravity here in Calgary. But I'm okay. It's just fine. Maybe I'll just take it off. I want to end with people that have come to my talks. A few people have. I work this passage from the canon into almost every talk I give because I like it so much, and it means so much to me. It's helped me so much, and it's completely about everything I'm talking about tonight. It's in the middle length discourses. There's 5 collections of the Buddha's teachings, and they're all organized by different guiding principles. And 2 of them are organized just by the length of the talk that the Buddha gave. So there's one collection of long discourses, and I'm talking about a sutta, a sermon of the Buddha that's from the middle length discourses. And it's Sutta 125, and it's called The Grade of the Tamed. Which is really like the way someone is once they've done a lot of spiritual work. The grade of the tamed. Tamed being the mind has been tamed. And in this sutta, the Buddha is giving a beautiful metaphor of what it's like to start to train our minds. And he uses something that would have been really meaningful at the time, not so much for us Albertans, but he's talking about taming a wild elephant. So, a wild horse, I guess, but this is a wild elephant. And so the metaphor begins with this wild elephant being caught in the jungle by an elephant tamer. And then begins the taming of this wild elephant. And the elephant tamer is us. And the wild elephant is us. It's our mind. And the wild part of it is the parts that some of us, spend a long time wishing weren't like that. And then we do that thinking with other people, especially sometimes our romantic partners. It would be great if this part wasn't there, and it's a waste of time, and it's actually harmful. So we're the elephant tamer, and our minds are the wild elephant. And it's so beautiful to me that the Buddha is describing the beginning of this training process. And he says that the elephant tamer speaks to the wild elephant. He gives 6 adjectives. He says the elephant tamer speaks to the wild elephant with words that are gentle, pleasing to the ear, lovable, as go to the heart, courteous, desired by many, and agreeable to many. And you know what happens? Guess. The Buddha says, when the elephant is spoken to in this way, the elephant it leans forward and it exerts its mind to understand. So this is for me. I have learned this. I am learning this through the Buddha's teachings, of mindfulness and metta, acceptance, coming into a more kind, gentle, useful relationship with myself and with my own parts that I've been really harsh towards much of my life. So I really, this to me is a much needed these are much needed teachings for all of us that the Buddha gives. So yeah, I was happy to talk about them tonight. Very happy, yeah. And please, very much welcome questions or comments, anything, or anything. It's all okay. Yeah. Great, yeah. Please, anyway. Yes.
We were talking about I was actually about to say, put my hand up and say now to embracing your dark side, the shadow side. And when I learned, they give this to anybody, 2-legged, 4-legged, whatever you call it, to give them acknowledgement, acceptance, appreciation, and affection.
Yeah.
Your dark side will, once you embrace it, and you say, yeah, I've got that, it calms down.
Yeah.
It doesn't bug you.
Yeah. That's David Rico, right? Yeah.
I can't remember the exact
Can you
source.
repeat the question?
Yeah.
So we can get it on.
We have someone saying that they've been working with this and they've used these 4 A's:
Acknowledgement,
acknowledgement,
acceptance,
acceptance,
appreciation,
appreciation,
and affection.
and affection.
The 4 A's.
Yeah, and David Rico has written this. Have I got the right name? It's the How to Be an Adult in Relationship.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, How to Be an Adult in Relationship. Yeah, and there's a 5th A, but those are the, yeah.
Awareness, but that's the same as to me as acknowledgement.
Yeah.
How come it's so much easier when it's somebody else than when it's yourself? Like you're going through something and you know this to be true, but it doesn't feel true.
Because I think of that's why I spent so long on Aristotle, Hercules, Christianity, individualism, because it's so deeply rooted in the very foundation of our whole civilization. So it I mean, probably many of us have know about trauma. We've been learning about trauma, and you can even learn about legacies of trauma. I mean, this is the very thing that we're looking at pictures of. Indigenous culture decimated, and just generations of trauma. So this not being well not being in a relationship like we just had explained, acknowledgement, acceptance, affection, and appreciation. Yeah, because it's not even in our awareness, and we have very few models of it. It's not been because of our conditioning. So it's very, very, very deep rooted. That's what I want to say. We've really come by it honestly. And then what we do is, it's another thing that we beat ourselves up about. Oh, geez, I can be a good friend to Sanghamitta, but I can't be a good another thing I'm failing at. Another thing that's not okay. And then we can pick up the Buddha's teachings and do the same. I was speaking with someone and they're having difficulty coming into a good relationship with anger. And they spell, well, the Buddha says I shouldn't be angry. You know what the Buddha says? The Buddha says you are angry. Buddha says that's one of, it's a third of the big problem. It's craving, anger, and delusion. So no, this is why the Buddhas taught everything he taught, because you are angry, because it's a problem. So it's is that helpful at all? Like, it's. I think the more that we understand the magnitude, the depth of us being in a relationship with ourselves, it's very different than the acknowledgement, acceptance, appreciation, affection. Yeah.
I give a quick example.
Yeah, please.
I used to work with somebody who's really, really lazy. And at that time I hated laziness because I was taught that that's not good. And I would get irked and angry if he was so happy with being lazy. Then I realized, well, wait a second, I'm projecting that laziness on him. I'm lazy in my own way. Once I realized that, I said, okay, wait, I just reframed it. I said, well, that's recalibrating. It's okay to take a break. I'm not a machine. And once I was okay with my version of laziness, my anger towards him disappeared. Because I accepted that myself.
Totally. Yeah. Please, Wendy.
I always think of Sylvia Boorstein's line, she says, put your hand on your heart and it's okay, sweetheart. Or whatever term of endearment you can endure, whatever. And I just find that really helpful.
So Wendy's sharing that beautiful lay teacher Sylvia Boorstein has given an instruction, again, kind of like the colicky baby, whatever works for you. It might be this idea of like a baby a puppy, like something that's very natural and genuine for you to have warmth and true concern for. So Sylvia Bornstein gives an instruction that just, in those painful times, put a hand on your heart and go, it's okay, sweetheart. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a wonderful talk. It was marvelous. Thank you. I wondered if you could address the key problem with being able to extend loving kindness to yourself. The problem is that I believe I am myself. I identify with Phil. So the object is me, and I identify with it. But the other part of the problem is the part that is extending the loving kindness to me, the awareness, is appropriated by self as well. How do I extend loving kindness to myself if what is extending the kindness is the same thing that's in pain? We identify with the self. We identify with offering the kindness. We have no capacity to step back in distance. How do we deal with the core issue of I am myself? I am in pain. I own my pain. And I can't offer compassion because subject and object are the same. I am self.
I think the beginning is what he's sharing. And the beginning is acceptance. So I think when we really accept the pain, you will experience when you accept the pain, which can, there's lots of reasons why we don't accept the pain. We think that the nervous system is going to be completely overwhelmed. It's a lot of times we think things are going to kill us. Like it can be that visceral. And so sometimes you need to accept the pain bit by bit, like titration. But when you really fully come into a place of accepting something, um, there begins to be a little bit of space. You said we don't have the capacity to um, distance ourselves,
In the beginning.
but yeah, in the beginning, no, you're overwhelmed. And so if it's just so overwhelming, the pain, then I think uh, something that can be very skillful is to actually have someone help you. It could be a therapist, it could be a close friend, a trusted friend, a spiritual friend, even your partner, and have them witness that pain and hold that pain. That also can, sometimes it is too much, especially if it's built up over like a long period of time, if it's something chronic or something very traumatic, um, then you don't want to go in there alone. Yeah, that's been my experience. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, please.
Another very powerful healing modality in this, hydra heads coming
Yes,
up,
yes,
or,
yes.
as we get to know ourselves better, is family constellation
Ye-
work. And that, because often what we're carrying isn't ours, like,
It's a legacy
doesn't
burden.
originate
Yes.
in my life, it does originate, maybe even in other family members' lives,
Mhm, mhm.
and in a very beautiful and non-verbal way,
Mhm, mhm,
um, much can be resolved.
mhm, mhm.
A lot of healing.
Beautiful. Thank you. Family constellations. Yeah. I've not done that work personally, but certainly heard amazing. And there's people in Calgary that do it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you connect with what you're talking about with the role of a meditation practice?
Yeah. Sure. And Sangamita might want to speak to this too. Yeah. You don't look like you want to, but yeah. I think in meditation practice, when we don't ever want to go digging. You don't ever want to go digging for uh, problems or traumas or nothing. No digging. No digging. But if you start to take time, where you are not being distracted by external things, and you're spending more time inner and going in. Uh, there can be times that you become aware when I of things that are difficult, memories that are difficult, and so when I finally got to the monastery in 2012, so I was meditating some, and it started to be like watching movies of my life. It was very odd, and I told Ayya Ahimsa, and she said that's quite common. And I think other people that start meditating, this happens. You just start, and initially it was bad things that had been done to me, and then it got more difficult. It was things that I had done that I had really, like, times I remember teasing a boy in grade 6. I remember, things like that. being quite mean to this girl, you know. So at times like that, or difficult things currently in your life, so you don't go digging, but if they're percolating up, um, uh, they sometimes can need attention, and you would want that attention to be like treating, with all of this as much compassion and interest and care as you can muster. John Brahm has renamed mindfulness kindfulness. Yeah. So, and that's this not bare awareness. It's not bare awareness. It's care awareness. It's an interest that's injected with warmth and kindness and gentleness. Yes.
Do you think reading or studying dependent origination can help you in the sense of things come out, people have been nasty to you, you've been nasty to people. And when you look at the dependent origination, like you or they were ignorant in the sense of dependent origination, as opposed to they did that or I did that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So someone's bringing up dependent origination, which is a 12-link, quite detailed teaching of the Buddha that really is pointing to causality and that the start and the start of all of this is ignorance. And he's saying if we take this teaching on board and understand, oh my gosh, this person did this to me, they said this to me, but it's coming out of their own ignorance, their own confusion. And then also cutting ourselves that slack, understanding, I mean, parents, I have 2 children. Parents need to do this a lot. Like, yeah, if I could rewind and go back and do it again, oof, boy, would I do some things differently. I think, but then you're in the moment and your patience is completely worn down again, I'm that much older. Like, I don't know, would it be that much better? We can think. But anyway, it's very good for us to understand that many things have come from confusion, delusion, misunderstanding. Yeah. Yes.
Can you talk about, we've been talking about the capacity of thinking. Can you talk a bit about mindfulness of body as a way of holding your pain, as an alternate strategy?
Great.
This is what I talk about all the time.
Yeah, this is what Sangamita talks about. She's a retired psychiatrist, but most of her practice, what's his name? Bud Ritchie?
Mhm.
So Bud Ritchie, and she was Dr. Mary Dumke. Bud Ritchie and Mary Dumke were the 2 alternative psychiatrists. So most of her psychiatry practice was body-centered psychotherapy, with a little bit of traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and cupping mixed in, and moxa.
Anyway, this teaching does not come from my psychiatry practice. It comes from Buddhism. I learned this, first of all, in a book from Bhante Gunaratana called Mindfulness in Plain English. And then I did 2 retreats with Thich Nhat Hanh, the beautiful Vietnamese teacher. And he named this technique the holding technique. So when you have physical pain in your body or an emotion, a big emotion that's coming up, whatever that might happen to be, anger, frustration, disappointment, whatever the emotion happens to be, then you can employ this. He called it the holding technique because the analogy he gave was holding a child. So if you have a little toddler that's just learning how to walk and it's toddling along and then it falls over and cries, you scoop that child up into your arms and hold that child. And you don't have to do anything really because they're not really hurt, they're just a little bit scared. And you just hold them and they feel your love, they feel your care, and then they settle down, wipe their tears, and run off toddling again. And so when you have physical pain or big emotion coming up, you're that hurt child. And so you want to hold yourself. And how do you do that? So the skillful way is to not be in your head. Because if you're in your head thinking things like, I can't stand this pain, like when's it going to end, this is horrible, or if it's an emotion, if you're thinking thoughts like, how could that person say that to me, or that was mean, or blah, blah, blah. Each one of those thoughts is like logs of fuel to the fire of that emotion. So it's unskillful to be up in your head. You need to be down into your physical body. So you scan your body and find where are you holding, either this emotion, because the emotion has two parts. It has the thinking part and it has a physical component. And in my experience, it's mostly people hold it in their heart chakra or their solar plexus chakra, but it could be in their fists or their shoulders or their jaw. Doesn't matter. You just scan your body and find where are you holding this, or if it's physical pain, where is the physical pain? And then you just lovingly, gently hold your attention onto wherever that physical sensation is in the body without thoughts. Because if you're thinking the thoughts, you're just going to make it bigger and bigger and bigger until you have a wildfire that's out of control. So you just hold your attention in a loving, caring way, just like you'd be holding a hurt child. And because you're not fueling it with your thoughts, if it's an emotion, it'll dissipate. If it's a physical pain, it may or may not change. Often it does. In my experience, when I'm doing the holding technique for myself and I have physical pain, it actually does decrease because we can make pain way worse with what we're thinking in our head. So if we eliminate that part, the pain can feel less. John Kabat-Zinn in his, he introduced that mindfulness program that's in a lot of hospitals. And he talks about riding the wave of physical pain because chronic pain is not a flat line. It's, it intensifies, it eases off, it intensifies, it eases off. So it's always there, but it does have peaks and valleys. So you do the holding technique while it's at the peak, and then when it eases off, then you can go back and engage in whatever you're wanting to do in your life. And then the next time it peaks, you just take a pause and do the holding technique. So this is one of the most valuable things that I learned and passed on to others from the Buddhist teachings.
Yeah, the body never lies. Yeah, the body never lies. I'm not anxious. I'm just losing my voice. Body never lies. Yeah. Yes?
Can I add to that? Feelings buried never die. Feelings are buried in the body. So.
I'm sorry, what?
Feelings buried feelings never die, but they're buried in the body, so the body doesn't move.
Yeah. So someone's sharing that buried feelings never die.
You bury a feeling, but it doesn't die.
Yeah.
We bury it in the body.
And the body keeps score. Thankfully, more and more, this is being understood.
Can you talk a little bit about the monastic tradition, where it fits into the Western model?
I think so it is what the Buddha set up, and it was in the context of India 2,600 years ago. And it was very much a part of that society. There were all kinds of alms mendicants. Do you know this word alms mendicant? It means that you're dependent on alms food. You're dependent on people giving you food. So as a monastic, as a Buddhist monastic, but again, this there were monastics in the Jain's tradition, and all other kinds of recluses in ancient India. But when you become a Buddhist monastic, there's this renunciation, and you become dependent on lay people for four requisites: for housing and food and clothing and medicine. They're the four requisites. And ideally, there's this beautiful interdependent relationship where lay people are providing physically for monastics, and monastics hopefully are devoting more time and energy to developing spiritually, developing their hearts and minds, and then they're able to offer spiritual food to lay people. And I think, obviously I'm a proponent of monasticism. It's not very well established in Canada, in the United States. We're not a Buddhist country. So it's some, there's some going upstream. But we're here, honestly, I can say this, we're here talking about the Buddhist teachings, and I'm sharing, things from the Buddhist scriptures because of monastics. Because of monastics. Like, that is the vehicle that has carried the teachings for millennia. And the one thing that I don't know how much everyone knows about Buddhism. There's this, aspect of Buddhism that it takes on parts of the culture that it goes to, and this is why Tibetan Buddhism has the flavor that it has, because it's got a lot of Tibetan influence in it. And Zen, it has the flavor that it does because it's got a lot of Japanese influence. And what I'm seeing in Buddhism coming to the West is there's two strong influences from the West. One is psychology, and so there's when you listen to a lay Western teacher, it's quite psychologically informed. But the other thing that I'm seeing, like being sort of infiltrating Buddhism in the West, is materialism, capitalism. And you have retreats that cost what it costs to go on a cruise. And I just will say, as a monastic, the Buddha really wants the teachings to be being offered freely. That they're really, ideally, there shouldn't be a registration fee. It should be being offered freely. And there are lay teachers that are doing that. Gil Fronsdale does that in the South Bay area, IRC, Insight Retreat Center. And if you go on the website, it's free. It's by donation, but it doesn't preclude people. Goenka is offering the teachings like no registration fee.
Phil and Leslie.
What's that?
I said
Phil and Leslie, yeah, you're operating by Donna. You're operating by Donna, yeah. This is actually a big deal. The Buddha says that the teachings are priceless. And money, when money is a distorter, you put a price tag on something and you've played around with its inherent value. So yeah, the Dhamma is priceless and ideally is being freely offered. And then hopefully the beauty of the teachings kicks in, and the people that can afford to give more, and the people that can't afford give what they can. But and then it's accessible. It's accessible to everybody. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
I thought you were going to say science was the other thing.
Oh,
And then money. Oh yes, money.
money. Yeah.
I read somewhere about how Buddhism survives. And they compare it to a tree. Hardwood is the monastics and the Dharma. The bark, the leaves, and the branches are like the lay people. And hardwood cannot survive by its own because the tree will die. So it needs the bark and the branches and the leaves. So that's how the harmony is.
This is beautiful. I've never heard that, and it makes sense. And that's how does the hardwood eat? But through the leaves, right?
The
Yeah.
whole tree is
And the whole tree, yeah.
the system that
Yeah.
survives.
And the Buddha said he wasn't going to die until he had established the fourfold Sangha, the fourfold community of ordained monks, ordained nuns, and learned lay male followers and learned lay female followers. So we had a monk here, we would have the fourfold Sangha.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Ayya
you.
Ahimsa.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could give 2 to 3 points for people to take home from your talk.
Yeah, like kindfulness, you're okay, mind. I love you, just the way you are. Yeah, and then our true changes start with our understanding. They start with our approach, and the more that we can be convinced that it's possible and that it's worthwhile to come into a more tender, gentle relationship, accepting relationship with all of ourselves, all of our parts. This is a great start.
So just a reminder about our donation basket at the back, and if you don't have anything with you, then you can go to the website, and we would gratefully accept donations on behalf of Canmore, but they also have their own donate button, right, on your website. So you can skip us and go straight to them, but do mention that you attended this talk if you do make a donation. I also wanted to mention that I am going to the Moon Day on Saturday, so it would be cool if some of you decided to go too. It starts at 9 and goes till 5.
Yeah.
And it's a day of practice. It's really beautiful to be able to practice with them. They're very powerful meditators. It's like you get zoomed up by going to sit with them. It's wonderful. You do need to bring your own lunch. And also there is a section on their website where it lets you know what donations they need, and you can offer a meal. You can sign up to offer a meal.
Yeah,
certain
that's
times.
great. If you bring a meal.
Yeah.
It'd be
And,
great.
and plumbers are eager.
Just say the name of the place in
Canmore Theravada Buddhist Community.
Canada.
If you Google Canmore Buddhism, our website will come up. Yeah.
Canmore Buddhism, you'll get there. Yeah.
And thank you to all of you for coming this evening. It was wonderful to share the talk from Ayya with you, and we look forward to seeing you in September. September 5th is our next gathering.
And it's not snowing, it's fluffing.
Oh, it's loving.
Fluffing.